Hi, welcome to Tales of Dread. Thanks for joining us for these 10 really creepy stories. Before we start the stories, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks a lot. Here we go. When I was 10, I moved to my dad's house. I didn't know anyone in the neighborhood except for my family. Luckily, there was a girl a few years older than me. When I met her, she was 12. It took us a little over 2 years to get to know each other. We didn't know each other well, but one night we were with the same group of friends. Rob, a friend of mine, was with her and her little brother. Because my friend's mom was at work, they were alone in the house. Her mother has been working with this one woman and has gotten to know her pretty well. She found out that her sister had been in a mental hospital and had just been let out. Rob is out with my friends late at night. Someone knocks on their door. My friend thought it was their mom because she knocks in a certain way, so he opened the door. He didn't realize Rob wasn't supposed to be there, so he let him in, and Rob ran out the window to his house down the road. He never gave it a second thought. It wasn't her mom, but the lady's sister. Her mom was helping, and she talked to the lady's sister to find out where her family lived and when her mom worked. She entered. I'm glad I don't know the details about this part. The younger brother of a friend of mine ran away, and went to the neighbor's house to call the police. A week before Christmas, the woman killed my friend very badly, cut off her head, and put her naked body in a bathtub. Even worse, she hit her head. They had to search through the presents to find it, and I don't know where they did. No one would let me go to her funeral. It happened to the grandmother of my wife about 15 years ago, when we were just getting to know each other. Her husband had died about a year before, but she had still been going to the library and helping out. It was a way to work out and meet new people. It was winter at the time. So when she walked back, it was getting dark, the library closed at 5, and there were a few more things to do before everyone left. And on this particular night, she turned down a ride from another volunteer because she wanted to stay in shape. About a mile of light woods in South Texas separates you from the house. And when she's almost home, she looks back and sees someone. He's walking in the same direction as her and getting closer to her, which isn't very interesting on its own. She is old, so she isn't very fast, but in this case, he seems a little bit scary. Soon, they will keep going. Right behind her, he is. Then he just keeps up with her pace and stays behind her. She knows now that something is going on, but she's almost home. She can see that the top of her driveway is getting closer, so she turns on her lights. So when she comes in, it will look like someone lives there. She only needs to go another 150 yards and 100 times that long. She said she could feel his breath on her neck because he was so close. Probably about 50 yards. It happens when someone puts a strong hand on her shoulder. Okay, chick, don't turn around and give me your purse or I'll cut you. She stops for a second, then takes a big step forward, turns, and shoots the guy in the neck with the .38 she keeps in her purse. The guy stayed in a prison hospital for the next 5 years before he died of complications. My wife's grandmother died last year, but she kept saying that she shot herself too soon until the end. When I was young, I'd say 8 to 11 ish. When my parents went out, my 7-year-old sister would watch the kids. At the time, she smoked a lot, so my parents made her go outside to smoke. So I'd follow her outside, play with her, annoy her, etc. One day, my sister notices a car sitting in the road at the end of the driveway. A bike rack is on top of a white SUV. I've never seen windows that dark before. From the side, you couldn't see inside. It sat there until she went inside, then drove to the end of the road, sat in the church parking lot, and waited until she came out for another cigarette. It did this strange thing over and over again. But my sister is a strong woman who just ignored it. That is, until the next day, when it came back while my parents were out. It would just sit at the end of the driveway and watch. I don't know what the driver was doing, but he was watching my sister. I know this because if I didn't go out, I'd watch from the front window and it would just sit there and watch my sister. She told my father, who was a sheriff deputy at the time. He called the police and filed a complaint. They got there, looked around, and couldn't find the SUV anywhere. Nothing happened for months. Then, 9 months after everything started and about 4 months after the last time it was seen, it came back. The next day, it happened again and again. My sister was doing her bad habit outside, and sure enough, here it is. This time, as usual, we were all by ourselves, and she decides that's enough. She tells me to stay in the carport and she'll go talk to them. She starts walking toward the SUV and later tells us, I felt complete terror, like I knew if I went any further I would die. Fear stopped me in my tracks. She went back inside after turning around. The family car was finally in the shop because something was wrong with it. Since my parents are home, we had to stay home for the night. My sister goes outside to smoke. I go outside with her, and the SUV shows up after a while. She tells me to go inside and tell my dad, so I go inside and tell him. Right away, my dad got his gun and started walking quickly down the driveway toward the SUV, but not straight at it. The SUV sped down the road and turned onto a big highway close by. The scariest thing is that my dad, who was a cop, wrote down the year, model, and features that made it stand out. A piece of duct tape had been put over the license plate. Never again did we see it. My parents had just split up, and I was only 4 or 5 years old. My mom was living in an apartment with 2 bedrooms. I had my own room, but when I stayed with her, I liked to sleep in her bed. At the end of the hall, right across from each other, were our 2 bedrooms. Our apartment was on the 1st floor, and I remember that it was the middle of the summer and my mom had a window open in her room, which was right behind the bed, above the headboard. Anyway, I woke up in the middle of the night, stood up, and saw that our cat was sitting in my mom's room doorframe. I should say that her door was open and you could see into my room a little bit. This was strange, because our cat usually slept with us every night. As I watched him, he walked into my bedroom. I turned around to face my mom and woke her up. She asked me what was wrong in the 3 or 4 seconds it took me to wake her up. We both looked back up at the door frame and saw a man standing by my open door, making his way out of the bedroom. My mother picked me up and literally threw me out the screen window. I still don't know how she did it so quickly. She caught up with us quickly, and we were able to start yelling for help. Someone then called 911. When the police came, they didn't find any signs that someone had broken in. Instead, they saw that her front door was unlocked, which made them think that the man must have left through that door. Strangely, my mom swore up and down that she had locked the door with the dead golden chain lock that night. About a week later, she was cleaning the kitchen when she opened the closet for our water heater and found a notebook with names and drawings, a pair of gloves, and some gum wrappers. Again, the police were called, but all they could do was guess that the man had been in our house and waited until we were asleep while I was doing my laundry one day. In my basement, one of the lights went out. The laundry room in my basement is separated from the rest of the basement by a wall and a door, so that you can go upstairs. you have to leave the laundry room and go through the other part of the basement. So the light blue in the other part, which wasn't the laundry room, was pretty dark because it was the only light on that side. I did the laundry I had to do while dreading the walk through the dark basement. I leave the laundry room and am halfway through the basement when I hear a loud cackle. Think of a sound that people make when they try to sound like witches. Imagine that the witch had been smoking for 50 years, which would have made her voice deeper and more hoarse-like. Eric, I heard that loud and clear right behind me. I didn't think twice about running up the stairs. I changed the light bulb after waiting for my dad to get home. Since then, I haven't heard that cackle again, and I haven't told anyone in the house about it. A friend of mine told me about this happening about a year or so ago. We'll give her a call. Min Ji is in her late 20s and works as an English tutor in South Korea. She was tutoring a high school boy one night a few years ago. They were up pretty late studying, and the buses stopped running because his house was so far away. The boy asked the girl if he could sleep on her floor and catch the first bus in the morning. Mindy didn't want to let a teenage male student stay the night because she didn't think it was a good idea. But he begged her, and she finally gave in. They went back to her one-room apartment, where she got into bed and he put a blanket on the floor. After a few hours, around 2 a.m., they both fell asleep. The boy wakes Mindy up and says, "I'm starving." He says, "Let's go get some food." Mindy opens her eyes and looks up at him in shock. "Now food, go back to bed, it's 2 a.m.? But the student says, "No, I'm really hungry, let's eat now." She tells him there is ramen in the kitchen and he can make some for himself, but this doesn't make him happy. He doesn't want ramen. There's a restaurant just down the street that's open 24 hours. We should go there? After a few minutes of convincing, the boy finally gets Mindy to go with him to the restaurant. They leave the apartment and head out. As soon as they're on the street, the boy turns to Mindy and says, "I'm not hungry. I woke up in the middle of the night and looked under your bed. A man is sleeping there." When they called the police, they found out that a homeless man had been living in Mindy's apartment for 2 months, sleeping under the bed. The only reason the boy saw him was because he was lying on the floor and could see clearly under the bed. I was going from 29 Palms, California, to Albuquerque by a shorter route. The state of New Mexico, east of LA, in the empty high desert, is the town of 29 Palms. The shortcut was a 2-lane road that went through a place with nothing but a passing through. Amboy? Nearly no one lives in Amboy, which is almost as far below sea level as Death Valley. So, I was driving by myself in the afternoon and went up into the mountain range between Amboy and I-40. Once I get to the top, I drive north through a canyon with tall grass on both sides of the road. I see something in the middle of the road up ahead. As I get closer, I slow down and see a red Pontiac Fiero stopped in the middle of both lanes. When the suitcase was opened, clothes were all over the place, and 2 bodies were lying on their backs in the road. A guy and a girl. I stopped about 100 feet away, and as a Marine, the hair on the back of my neck is standing up. I reach under the seat and pull out a 9mm pistol, which I then reload. Something didn't seem right. It looked too good, like it had been set up for the ambush. There was just something wrong. As I looked at the road, I saw a line where I could pass the guy in the road on his left if the woman behind the Fiero swerved to the right, and I would be on the other side. I put it in first gear, pushed down on the gas, and drove it to the line. I planned. I went by the back of the Fiero without hitting it or either of the bodies in the road. I moved forward a few hundred feet and then slowed down so I could take a breath and let my heart slow down. When I looked in the rearview mirror, I saw that the two bodies had gotten up to their knees and about 20 people had come out of the tall grass on either side of the road near the car and bodies. At that moment, I slammed my right foot down on the gas pedal and kept going until I had to slow down for the I-40 East on-ramp. I'll never know what would have happened if I had gotten out of the car to check on the bodies or pulled over closer to them. We were fishing at night on the James River with some friends. We were sitting on the beach with a fire going, talking about nothing, and drinking a few beers. All of a sudden, everyone stopped talking, as if a switch had been turned off. We were all looking across the river, and it seemed like something or someone was looking back. Some of the group tried to get rid of the uneasy feeling with typical macho humor. When a terrible sound came from the other side, everyone stopped in their tracks. I had never heard a sound like that before, and it made every hair on my body tingle and vibrate. It sounded like a wild person with no language skills was being gutted while still alive. No words. Just this blood-curdling, high-pitched scream. No one moved or spoke. We all just sat there, fixed in our steps, until all of a sudden a second scream came loose with even more force than the first. At this point, a few of us were running as fast as we could to our parked trucks a few yards away to get guns. When we got back, we all sat there quietly with our eyes fixed on the other shore, watching the light from our fire reflect off the rocks. We waited on the other side of the river for another scream or something to move. The third scream came just as quickly, but this time it was on our side of the river, coming from the bushes about a yard away. We all ran away quickly, leaving most of our things behind. When we got to our trucks, just beyond the trees, we heard the scream again. We all sped out of there as fast as we could, but we never found out what was making the noises. It was Friday night, and my friend was coming to pick me up at my house in his car. We were running late for the hockey game in the city, so I was in a hurry. The whole trip there by car. I didn't even realize I didn't have my phone because we were having so much fun. I looked under the seat and on the floor, but I couldn't find it in the car. I thought I had just forgotten it while watching the hockey game. I couldn't stop thinking that I might have lost my phone. So I used my friend's phone to quickly get to the bathroom. I called my home number and hoped someone would answer. Someone picked up the phone after 3 rings, but they didn't say anything. I yelled into the phone that I was just calling home to make sure I didn't leave my phone there. They didn't say anything? I thought it was my little brother playing a joke on me. So I hung up. When I got home late that night, I found that neither of my parents was there. When I got home, I called them to find out where they were. They told me that they had taken my little brother out to eat, and to a concert in the park. They said they left for the game right after I did and should be home in about 30 minutes. So I ended the call and started looking for my cell phone. But then I thought about how someone in my family could have answered my phone if they weren't home. As fear took over, I felt a pain in my stomach. I heard the back door of my house open and close at that moment. I ran out the front door and yelled to the neighbors, then called the police. Someone had just walked in through the back door, which had been left open. No one took anything. But the scariest thing is that we could have fallen asleep with a stranger in the house a while ago.